This chapter is titled Un Sogno Napoletano. Gio. We all have that one that got away. The guy, girl, or they, them. Someone who, despite your mess, loved you. And at the same time, tries to understand and help you through it. As life would have it in a cruel, fucked up joke, the timing would be all wrong. You wouldn't be capable of managing something that could prove to be good for you, beneficial to your overall well-being. No, of course not. Because that would make too much sense. How lucky would you be to come upon this person at the right time, clear-headed and all, and have a smooth relationship, a healthy relationship? What fun would that be? That was Gio. We met on the app, of course, and you had a photo of your torso as your profile photo. It was nothing spectacular, as you referred to it, but you were lean and had some definition. It wasn't even the photo itself, but an energy that you gave off in the photo that attracted me. So I messaged you and awaited a response, and when you finally responded, I was shocked when you'd sent me your face pic a few messages in. Dark chestnut-colored eyes against smooth olive sun-kissed skin. Bushy eyebrows adding character. Your ears, I know you didn't much care for, stuck out a little more than others. I liked that. You were a beautiful man. And for a moment, I thought I was being catfished. There was simply no way in hell that you were real. You were in the States to work for the college program, and as such, you weren't exactly looking for anything serious. Very NSA. And that worked for me. I totally got it. I mean, here I was only having separated from Devin 2 or 3 months prior. I needed to move on and get my mind off that, and this made for an ideal situation. Or so I thought. What I wasn't expecting was for you to be funny and sexy and kind-hearted. The more we chatted, the more we seemed to relax into one another. We hit it off, and before I knew it, we were spending more and more time together. You brought me an oddly soothing sense of comfort, something that I hadn't felt in quite some time. We spoke with ease, and you made me laugh harder than I had in a while. It was a fond revisit to emotions I'd never thought again possible. You loved people, and people loved you. I would watch you through adoring eyes as you would interact with your coworkers, listening to your fast Italian as you excitedly told stories of home and anything that made you happy. You had an eclectic sense of style, and I enjoyed imagining what you would throw together. You were selfless and loving and present. You put on a tough facade, but deep down you were a massive teddy bear. I was falling for you. A few months passed, we'd fallen gracefully into a relationship, and in the middle of the night, a switch went off. Gone were the easy, breezy, beautiful, carefree days. Gone was my clear state of mind. No more was I in control of what I was feeling. The past had crept into my window and sat atop me like a sleep paralysis demon and vomited its vile nature into my mouth. Through blinded eyes, I could no longer see you for who you were anymore. Instead, I saw everything that was wrong, nitpicking about the most farcical of things. I began to relentlessly dig for problems, trying to spark an argument at any time, anywhere. And at that moment, I knew that the fairy tale I'd begun to envision was on its way full speed into a horrific ending, crashing through the window and connecting to the pavement face first, stripped of any recognizable identifiers. I wondered why you hadn't walked away. What reasons were you giving yourself to continue responding to my texts or answering my calls? How could you sleep beside me and before we would close out the day, tell me that you loved me? I didn't recognize what had been an effortless 2 or 3 months. And so we spiraled further and further into a dark abyss until my capacity to differentiate my past from present dissipated. What was more petrifying was that I'd begun to lose myself again, questioning my worth, second-guessing every kiss and touch. Against my internalized wishes, we ended up where I predicted it would. Our story was a chaotic one, a center full of laughs and great sex, warm embraces and longing looks, all the while surrounded by thorns of misdirected anger and shards of petty antics. Perhaps if I had had my shit together, then maybe, just maybe, there could have been a glint of prosperous life with you. The truth is, I wasn't ready for you. I knew this, and I still granted you access to get closer. I wasn't right for you, and timing damn sure wasn't in our favor. I didn't deserve you. Fuck. I'm sorry. Our story was messy and short. What felt like 10 years of marriage had been compressed into a fiendish year. Dear Gio, I thought that I would do things a little differently with your portion of the writing by getting straight to the things I wanted to say. First and foremost, I'd like to apologize for so much, for everything, in fact. After I'd separated from Devin, so much of me was missing. I didn't know what life was or what it meant anymore. I was beyond lost and confused. The optimistic and carefree me had long vanished along with the life I'd so recently lived. And like many who have been in my situation, I thought that actively or passively filling that void with someone would make things better. Something or anything to distract myself from thinking about what had gone wrong no more than half a year ago. I knew it was too soon for me to even be considering the idea of seeing anyone, but at the time it made sense. Initially, I had in my mind that it was just something to fill the time. Fuck buddies or friends with benefits. As the days passed, and those days expanded into weeks and months, I knew I had made a grave mistake. I had allowed for us to go on further than I had planned or wanted to. I felt myself wanting more from you and for us. The urge to constantly text you and want to be near you, joining you in outings and meeting your friends. I was actually forming feelings for you, and that's when I really tried to push you away. I couldn't allow for someone else to do to me what had been done. I couldn't let myself fall at the chance of being cast aside and lied to. The entirety of our relationship was an emotional drain on the both of us. For you most of all. We argued nearly every day. Well, I did most of the arguing and you took it. Even then, in the back of my mind, I was screaming at myself to stop yelling, stop the unnecessary arguing, to stop looking for reasons to push you away, although I wanted you to be close. Seeing you cry hurt most of all. Why I was hurting this innocent and caring person? I knew that. Why was I hurting this innocent and caring person? I knew that. Had I asked you for anything, would you have found a way to somehow make it happen? It was so hard on you for no reason, and I am forever sorry. When you decided you wanted to move back home, the idea of letting go and losing you hurt more than I'd expected it to. I'd fallen in love with you. Or better yet, I was selfishly unwilling to let go of the idea and reality of you. A lusting sensation that I only wanted one person to feel, and you just so happened to be that someone. But there were feelings there, Gio. I promise this to you. In spite of the way things appeared, I know that I have genuine feelings for you. And after much discussion, I chose to follow you to your hometown. Could this be a chance to finally make things right? To let go of the pain and the torture I was inflicting upon the both of us? Eager I was to be rid of the life I had lived, to surround myself with new scenery and people, a new life, a fresh start, an opportunity to find myself once again. The food was amazing. The vibes of the city were as close to what I could have imagined as could be. Your family were the kindest group of people I could have met. I felt so at ease being around them. The friends you'd introduced me to were equally gratifying. I understood then why you spoke so much about them. I held nothing but gratitude to spend that time with them, seeing you smile and laugh with that obnoxiously charismatic laugh of yours. Unfortunately, it didn't make it any better. A couple of months had passed, and we had managed to only cover the deep stains we built back up in the States, pretending like everything would be okay if we didn't address the elephant that was so clearly stumping around the room. For some weeks, we stressed about money and what would be our course of action. I had begun to feel like more of a stranger outside than before. I knew you were trying your best, and I should have thanked you more when I had the chance. My mind was clouded and unfocused on the present. Instead, I was fixated on what the coming days meant for us. I realized I wasn't the only one that had been making sacrifices. The reality was that we were hanging on by strings. We knew the time would come to where we would need to be honest with ourselves and accept that saying goodbye would hurt far less than trying anymore. We had stretched it out for as long as it possibly could, but it was time to call it quits. I stayed up the entire night fumbling around how I would present the conversation to you. Would it make more sense to start with an apology or hold it off until the end? What difference would it fucking make? I had irrevocably broken your heart, and here I was, about to do it again. Maybe in a different time, we would have been something amazing, Gio. Our smiles wouldn't have been forced, and the idea, along with the feeling of loving you, would have come naturally. We wouldn't have to shuffle through the countless arguments and tears in order to find a good memory. I would sooner notice all the things you did for me. The many things I took for granted because I was too focused on the narrative, the ugly, the unlikely what ifs. I wouldn't have held you accountable for the wrongdoings of another, and I would have understood that you were not my ex. So treating you as such would have been foolish. I looked over at you soundly sleeping, your arm thrown over your body as you sometimes did if you weren't curled up into a ball. Your face was slowly sinking in between the two pillows. A heaviness wrapped around me as tears fell down my face. It felt as though I was looking at you for the first time. There you were, the moon's soft glow peeking through the curtain and resting on your defined cheeks. I pictured your wide eyes open, staring back at me before you would transform your face into some oddly misshapen creation to lure a laugh from me. You made the funniest of faces. A gentle humming of your breathing collided well with the outside noises of the night. And as I closed my eyes to blink away the built-up puddle, I could hear the faintest echo of your voice saying, "I love you." It was in that moment that I broke down. It was strange because I hadn't felt this pain with Devin, a sharp sensation that began at the center of my heart and pulsated throughout my body, electrocuted. As I reflected, I understand that I had emotionally removed myself from the narrative far before he left me. However, mentally, I subjected myself to feeling all of these things: grief, anger, abandonment, confusion, disgust. I had made myself feel heartbroken from what he had done. The only difference between the two was that now, as I sat beside you, I was actually experiencing heartbreak. "I love you too," I whispered, the words fading into the quiet room. When the morning broke through the shutters, I lay there, face up to the ceiling, still wide awake. I tried relentlessly to fall asleep, changing positions every 5 minutes or so, with no sign of my body giving into the exhaustion it driven itself into. Today would be the day. Today would have to be the day. From the peripheral, I watched you turn over to face me. The heat of your breath stuck to my tense skin as you said good morning. I wondered if you knew that I had been thinking all along. What I had been thinking all along. Sitting up on your elbow, you pulled away to have full view of my face. "What's wrong?" you asked me. At the most inopportune moment, silence fell over me. My tongue was jammed in the back of my throat, my teeth were locked tighter than jail bars, and my thoughts were shooting at a quicker pace. So fast, it was impossible to decipher the scrambled words that were darting around. "Marcus, what's wrong? Are you okay?" you asked again. Your voice was filled with distressed concern. A single tear rolled down the side of my face and fell into the pillow beneath me. I closed my eyes to prepare for whatever may escape. Given my head and mouth decided to regain the ability to work properly once again. I didn't dare look at you in the eyes, and I realize now I took the easy way out. I owed you that, and I'm sorry. It was hard enough wrapping my head around what was about to unfold and how you would take it. Though I had seen you cry before, this time was different. This time, I knew this was a pain I'd drawn out. This time, I knew this wasn't something I could take back. I wanted nothing more than to coil into a little ball and roll out of the balcony doors, onto the street and down some gutter. Lost forever. I think it's probably best if I go home. I didn't recognize the sound of my voice. It was obscure in its own way. You said nothing. I couldn't look at you, but I knew your eyes were full of feelings. Your face was empty of expression. It's just, I feel like it's gotten to the point where there's nothing more for us. We're not happy, and I don't want to hurt you anymore, I added. After we finished silently crying, as to not draw any attention from your mother, who was a few feet away, we looked at flights from our return home. It was a bittersweet feeling. On one side, I would be able to focus on myself and get my life in order, but in doing so, I would be leaving you. And again, the idea of what could have been. I couldn't imagine how opaque the world must have been for you in those days leading up to my departure. It was almost as if your mother had also foreseen this conclusion by the way she looked easily. It was almost as if your mother had also foreseen this conclusion by the way she so easily took the news. Still, I caught the slightest hint of sadness, or maybe it was disappointment in her eyes when she looked at me before wrapping her arms around the both of us. There's something about the embrace of a mother that makes even the toughest of us shatter. On the day I was leaving, you kept the air light and pretended to be your usual self, cracking jokes and trying to make me feel better about the decision. You always had this beautiful ability of being able to find the good in any situation, no matter how disagreeable or puzzling or unnecessary. At times it felt so fake and unreal, but deep down, I envied you for this optimism you'd chosen to hold on to despite the world being so crafty. In spite of the way I'd treated you, I kept repeating in my head, please forgive me, please forgive me. I was thankful for your smile and airy mood, but sure enough, once we reached the location within the airport where we had to separate, neither of us could hold back anymore. I dropped my bags and fell into your arms. For what felt like an eternity, we cried. Your mother stood back and allowed us our moment. I didn't care what anyone walking by had to think or say. Why had life done this? Why had I allowed for it to happen? For what reason did we come into each other's worlds just to end it here? Why couldn't I have been okay and let go of what had already ended? Why couldn't I be okay for myself and for you? You didn't deserve an ounce of the bullshit I put you through, and I can never take back the things I've said and done. You were truly a blessing in your own way. I hope that somewhere within the mayhem, you two enjoyed moments with me. It was hard walking away from you that day. With each step I took, you slipped away. It took all this time to see the damage and pain that I had caused. For a short time after we'd been parted, I held on to a slight glimmer of hope that we would find our way back to each other. As time moved on, I accepted that what we had was meant for that specific time in our lives. There was no going back, no do-overs. Occasionally, whether I was in the middle of a workout or strolling through social media, or just sat at the edge of my bed, I would imagine what your life would have been like had I not messaged you that October day. It was then, driving on the clusterfuck of a highway, and for the first time, I began to beg whoever was listening to somehow rewind time so that I could save you the heartache. To erase from your memory any versions of me you clung to, and those that your psyche had laid dormant out of protection, aimlessly trying to delete any remnants, to forget. Although years later we've had our sporadic conversations, I would like to say sorry. I do hope that you forgive me. To my first love, wherever you are in this world, I want you to know that you will always, always have space in my heart. Most of all, I hope that you are well and thriving. Ama sempre, Marcus S. P.S. I'm regularly reminded of the song Caruso that we would sing religiously in the car, your flat or my own. Admittedly, I played it several times once I'd returned home, imagining you were there in the passenger seat, belting every single note with me. And as tears would storm down my face, I could hear your voice telling me it was okay.